Microsoft's Surface lineup of products is probably its most interesting one because they're kind of all over the place. The Surface Pro, for example, is a laptop, tablet, pro hybridish thingy that kind of competes with the iPad Pro, for example, but it kind of doesn't. Anyway, today we have their latest iteration, the Surface Pro 8. And this thing is rocking some pretty cool specs. So we have an 11th gen Core i5 1135G7 processor. We also have 8 gigabytes of DDR4 RAM. Additionally, we also have a 256 GB solid state drive, which is configurable to higher amounts. Past that, we also have Intel's integrated Iris Xe graphics. We have a Wi-Fi 6 as well as Bluetooth 5 adapter on board. And yes, this is a 13-inch fully touch captive display. Today, we're going to see all the tricks Microsoft has up its sleeves to make the Surface Pro 8 a competitive buy for you, or if there just really isn't anything in the bag to begin with. As always, if you enjoyed this review, make sure you hit that like button and sub to my channel. It brings a smile and genuinely helps me grow. Thank you. Starting with a real quick unboxing, as you can see, the front side of the Surface Pro 8 box has the actual image of the device itself in the color you opted to get it in. On the back side, you'll also find the technical specifications and general information about the device. Now, once you remove the plastic wrapping, set the box down, it glides in this really smooth and subtle fashion. It almost reminds me of Apple's packaging style. Now, inside you have your key player, which is of course the Pro 8. It's in this interesting high quality wax paper. Remove that and here's this gorgeous piece of glass and metal, but more on that in a quick minute. Past that, you have two additional boxes. So open the long box first. Inside the long box, you will first and foremost find Microsoft's iconic Surface charger. Now, this is a 65-watt charging adapter, and it also has this really interesting USB bypass, which is nice to see. Now, it is a proprietary charging pin. It's Microsoft's own Surface charging pin. It's trip safe, cool stuff. Now, you also, of course, have a standard wall outlet charging cable piece. Past that, we make our way to the smaller box. Now, inside here, once you open it, it's pretty flat, so it should give you a hint as to what it is. It's just Microsoft's quick start guide, warranty information, and regulation information, the stuff you're probably never going to read. The Surface Pro 8 is undoubtedly a beautiful piece of hardware. Everything from that expansive 13-inch white glass display from one edge to the other on the front of the device, to that premium metallic exterior on the backside holding it all together, just feels so nice and seamless. And not just that, at just approximately 1.98 pounds, the Surface Pro 8 is such a featherweight device. This thing will hardly put a dent in the overall weight of your commute backpack. It's just really well thought and it has supreme portability in mind. The Surface Pro 8 is a pretty busy laptop. So on one side, you have the power/wake button, you have two Thunderbolt 4 USB-C ports, and of course you have the Surface charging port. On the other side, you're going to find the volume rocker as well as the good old 3.5mm headphone jack. The top side, not much to see, but you do have a two-tone design. This is likely because this is where the Wi-Fi 6 as well as Bluetooth antennas are hosted. You'll also notice the sides and the top of the device have a bunch of vents. This is of course for air circulation to keep the device running nice and cool. The bottom of the device is where you'll find the Surface magnetic connection port, and this is of course you want to get the additional or optional, shall I say, Surface type cover and connect it. I did not get it personally this time because I don't think it's worth the price it's being sold at. It's expensive and it isn't anything I personally need. I'd rather just get a case for the device itself from Amazon, but that's another topic I'll talk about later on in the video. Making our way to the rear side of the device, we have that same composed metallic frame. And you'll notice towards the top side is where you have the 10 megapixel camera. Right next to that, you have the dual array microphone system. And yep, you also have the iconic Microsoft logo. Now, Microsoft's gone with a mirror-like reflective surface over here. It just looks really nice, although it is a bit of a fingerprint magnet. I also love the fact that just like all their other Surface tablets, you have a kickstand built in the bottom half. It's really practical, simple, and it keeps the laptop in a stable yet upright position. The display on the Surface Pro 8 is definitely one of its biggest assets. So you have a 13-inch widescreen with a resolution of 2880 by 1920 or 267 pixels per inch. Additionally, you have a refresh rate that goes all the way up to 120 Hz, making everything look so smooth. You'll also be happy to know that Microsoft has a nice touch system on board with a multi-touch 10-point system. Basically, that means touching this laptop feels good. no inappropriateness intended. Now, in terms of color accuracy, this is a pretty vivid display. So you have a 100% sRGB rating or a 72% DCI P3 gamut range. Generally speaking, while not the most colorful or color accurate display in the market, it definitely is great for photo or video activities or any other color sensitive activities. Now, Microsoft has a peak rated brightness of 450 nits with this display, which basically means this is more than enough for any indoor or outdoor setting. Although keep in mind you have a super reflective display here, which means often you'll find yourself maxing out the brightness to compensate for the glare. The camera on the Surface Pro 8 are top notch. So the front facing camera is 5 megapixels and it can record footage up to 1080p. So generally speaking, it's really nice. It does great in daylight settings and surprisingly well in low light settings as well. It's better than like 95% of laptop webcams out there. Now, the rear camera has a pixel count of 10 megapixels and it can record 1080p or 4K footage. And honestly speaking, it's actually really crisp and clear. I was genuinely impressed at just how good these cameras are. Performance on the Surface Pro 8 is highly inconsistent and kind of all over the place. So on one side, general tasks like let's say web browsing or word processing or general productivity are going to work seamlessly and exactly as intended. But when you start doing actual pro-grade activities like let's say photo editing or 1080p video editing, you'll notice that at the beginning or initially the workflow is super smooth, but very quickly into the workflow when you start adding multiple layers, there's frequent frame drops in the editing timeline, running times can become quite slow, and this is simply because the device just can't keep that laptop class processor cool enough in that super small and sleek body. Heat dissipation essentially. Same thing goes over with gaming. So it can run games like GTA 5 at its native resolution at a steady 30 plus frames per second, but then out of nowhere you'll get these occasional frame drops, which again are the direct result of thermal throttling going on the device and the fans are just going wild. So yes, casual gaming is possible, but this is definitely not a device that's intended for gaming. The Surface Pro 8 is definitely a hot-tempered device. So under hypothetical peak loads, this device can hit an average surface temperature just beneath 48 degrees Celsius, making it uncomfortably hot. Under more realistic sustained loads, like let's say you're doing long-term photo editing, it'll stay around the 42 degrees Celsius mark, which is still relatively warm and definitely above the average. Under even less loads, like low loads, like doing general productivity, you'll stay around the 25 to 26 degrees Celsius mark, which is again above average. It's definitely a pretty warm device. Also, in terms of fan noise, you can hit a maximum of around 44 decibels based on our tests at least, but this is usually for short periods of time, a couple minutes at most. Now, you're probably noticing a theme over here. The thing is, the Surface Pro 8 has a laptop class i5 processor. It also has Intel's integrated Iris Xe graphics, but it has a super slim and sleek body. Simply put, the Surface Pro 8 just can't get rid of the heat fast enough, which results in heat buildup and ultimately thermal throttling. To you, that appears as reduced performance. So if you are going to be buying this device for heavy workflows, that's definitely a consideration you want to keep in mind. Battery life on the Surface Pro 8 unfortunately is another disappointing element. Microsoft claims you can get up to 16 hours with typical usage. I have no idea what that means because in our test, at less than 50% brightness, web surfing, as well as watching a couple of YouTube videos, we got less than 10 hours on a single charge. And if you do anything remotely demanding like photo editing, that drops to around 5 hours. And if you do any sort of casual gaming on here, that drops well below the 2-hour mark. The variation between the 10 hours we tested versus what Microsoft claimed of 16 hours is borderline close to misinformation, so definitely not the best element of this device. The speakers in the Surface Pro 8 are cleverly integrated in the top vents of the device. Now, with that said, I found, generally speaking, for such a small device, it's pretty loud and also it's very clear, at least up until about 75% volume range. If you go any higher than that, though, you do start hearing a little bit of distortion. Have a quick listen for yourself.
I've got an itch I can't scratch, I'm missing a piece that completes a whole part of me, an open wound scar to see. Everybody come here, gather round, welcome to the freak show, the best in town. What the hell's wrong with me? I don't get along with anybody, honestly. I've been living in my own head constantly, thoughts jumbled around, think I need a new lobotomy. Wait, all these thoughts are too negative.
The final thing I want to talk about are the optional accessories. So to get the Surface Slim Pen 2, you have to dish out another $130, and to get their signature keyboard, another $180. That's insane. It's a lot of overhead cost. Yes, the signature keyboard is a great design. It kind of serves as a protective case as well, but there's nothing about it that screams $180. Microsoft should have significantly subsidized that given how expensive the Surface Pro 8 is to begin with. And the Slim Pen is a very niche item, so unless you have a specific use case, you don't really need to get that as an optional accessory. It's most definitely not worth its price for general productivity. Starting at $950 USD and going all the way up to $2,400 for the top i7 configuration, the Surface Pro 8 is a expensive device, definitely intended for the premium segment. You do get a cutting edge design, top-notch build quality, and a very practically and well-engineered device in general. You also have a great display with a decent resolution, amazing color accuracy, great brightness, and great touch functionality as well. I also appreciate the fact that the device has what I consider to be generally good speakers. Now, a lot of things holding this device back first and foremost include its lackluster performance. For a device that has the word Pro in it, I just can't justify that because, well, it turns out putting a full-size processor in such a small device has consequences, which usually means any heavy-duty workflow like photo, video editing, or even casual gaming suffers in the form of frame drops or just poor performance in general, and you also get frequent thermal throttling that makes this device uncomfortably hot at times. Also, the fact that you have lackluster battery life, especially when compared to the competition, is inexcusable. At just 10 hours, I expected more from Microsoft. Now, with that said, the Surface Pro 8 is still a great general productivity device, so if that's your use case and you just want a really well-feeling and built device, go for it. But if you are actually going to be using this for heavy-duty workflows, you may want to consider just getting a standard laptop because you'll get better performance at cheaper price with the same configuration, or you may want to look at the competition like the iPad Pro with its far more efficient M1 processor, for example. But that's my honest take on the Surface Pro 8. Let me know what your thoughts are. Let me know how you like this review. Thank you for watching. Make sure you hit that like button and sub to this channel if you found this video to be informative or helpful. See ya!